Hey, football fans. This is Gary Greene in Las Vegas, longtime sports handicapper and professional sports bettor for the past 35 years. We're going to do a quick little recap, some of the tape watching that I've done so far, early reads on some of these games just to take note of for your future bet for week number 8 in the NFL. But we'll start off with the Atlanta team. Overall, was it just a debacle against Seattle in every phase? But first off, Kirk Cousins, he looked really scared and slow in the pocket. Terrible overthrows on wide open receivers, just a terrible game. I think we're going to see more of that going forward than we see of great games. He's an up and downer, and he's never won big games, so he's not a guy that I even look at to bet on. But the offensive line was a disaster. They got destroyed by the Seattle defense. I mean destroyed. It was really, really bad. Seattle just had their way. They made no adjustments. That's on the head coaches and the coaching staff of the defense and the offense. Both of those sides of the ball were terrible, but the offensive line should have been able to make some adjustments. They just could never make them, and they got destroyed. The defense penalties over and over on key third downs, 3rd and 8s, 3rd and 9s, making stupid penalties. They did it numerous times. Their kicker, who is pretty good, misses an easy field goal that he should have been able to make. That really at the time changed the game in this scenario, so nothing good for Atlanta in that ball game. Next up, Sam Darnold. We know that the Vikings have played very well, and it's been partly because of Sam Darnold, but forget his throwing. This kid has really gotten better in the pocket with awareness. He eluded 6-7 tackles on different plays to continue drives, get first downs, extend them with runs or passes, throwaways, but still got away from the defenses. He is playing fantastic, and Justin Jefferson, by far the best wide receiver in the league. I'm not a prop guy, but this guy's going to make his yardage week after week. I think I looked it up, and his prop was over 80. He got 81 yards. It's a miracle that you can hold this kid under 100. This kid is a superstar. Next up, the Washington offense. You know, the difference with this team is the offensive line is so improved. For the last 3 years, that's my team. I call them the Redskins. You can see behind me here the Redskins hat. But the offensive line brought in a couple new guys, but the coaching, they have 3 excellent offensive line coach help this year, and it's made all the difference. They are catching all the stunts. Daniels went out, no big deal. Mariota came in, still continue to play good. They're a top 10 offensive line right now in my rankings, which I never even could have imagined when they were in the 30, 31, 32 range for the last 3 years. The linebacking core for the Redskins went from dead worst to maybe the best in the league. So this team is not just Jaden Daniels, and he's hurt now with a rib problem. We hope he doesn't miss too much time. But if he does, Mariota is basically the same type of player. Mariota, after the first 3 incompletions, he looked really good. So they're not going to be downgraded too much, although they'll have a tough game going against the Bears defense. Next up, the Carolina defense. We know this team's bad. It's easy to say we know they're bad, but the reason partly that they're bad is they are completely decimated by injuries on the defensive side of the ball. There's nobody coming through. Practice squad players are not going to get the job done for the most part. They might find a gem in there. That's how sometimes you get lucky and you find a practice squad player that's a gem, and that's great. But they're not 1 or 2 missing pieces. They're about 9 missing pieces. This team's in big trouble going forward. The Houston offense, to me, the Atlanta offense was number 2 worst, but the worst on Sunday that I've watched, and I'm stunned that I'm saying this about the Houston Texans, their offensive line was so bad. And I'm going to get to the reason why, partly why they were so bad. But this offensive line could not block for C.J. Stroud. He had no time. He was getting killed. They had under 100 yards at halftime. And going forward, I don't know. I've watched this for years. We're halfway through the year. If you're not able to pick up stunts at this time of the year, you're not going to do it next week or the week after. That just means you're too slow, and you clearly can't block. And that's going to be a problem going forward for the Houston team. This offense on Sunday, the average yards to gain needed on 3rd down was 6.3 yards. That is just a tough way to continue to move the chains. If you're 6.3 yards all the time, that means you got to pass. And the next part I'm going to talk about is the Green Bay defense. most underrated defense in the league. I came into the year saying this defense in the secondary might not be that good. That was going to be a weak spot. This defense, with a new defensive coordinator, Hadley from Boston College, who I just thought was going to be a disaster coming from college, he has absolutely been A-plus phenomenal. He has got these guys rushing, hitting the spots on almost every play. They were doing blitz packages that Houston couldn't stop. They were using pressure stunts on the offensive line of Houston that they couldn't stop any of these things. Everything they did worked. It was an unbelievable factor that the Houston Texans were actually ahead late in that game, and the Packers had to come back and kick a field goal. But that's very misleading. Don't look at it like Houston really played pretty well. They were terrible. Hats off to them for hanging in that ball game. But I'm telling you right now, this Green Bay defense is going to be something to be reckoned with, because the play calling, and play calling is everything in the NFL, has been just absolutely phenomenal. The next team I'm going to talk about, and I did a video last week about offense. That's one of my biggest things. That's why I'm a winning sports bettor for 35 years. Nobody looks at the offensive line. If offensive linemen are out, most people don't even know, and they don't care. If you hear the quarterback's out, or a key running back, or a key wide receiver, oh no, we can't bet that team. Well, guess what? One offensive lineman being out could be a killer. And it's worse when you have to move everybody around and you can't just replace that one spot. So if the left tackle, the right tackle has to go to the left tackle, or the center or right guard has to go to center, all these things are very, very bad. Musical chairs on the offensive line, even if you just miss one guy. But the Giants, their offensive line, I said they were going to be in trouble just losing one guy, the best player, and playing musical chairs. And guess what? 8 sacks that Jones took, 7 for him and 1 for the backup. But it was a disaster all day. It's a miracle. Jones threw the ball away a few times and scrambled away. It could have been double-digit sacks. That is really bad in the NFL. When you're getting sacked over 3 times, the offensive line is not playing well at all. When you get sacked 7, 8 times, that just means it's over. It's over, folks. There's nobody walking through that door that's going to replace the best offensive lineman that got hurt, and the musical chairs are going to continue, and God forbid they lose one more offensive lineman. But the Giants were 0-5 in their last 5 home games before playing the Eagles on Sunday. They scored no touchdowns in those 5 games. That's almost impossible. You get a bomb pass for pass interference almost in every game, at least one. You're going to get a touchdown. They scored no touchdowns. They kicked a field goal on the last play of the first half to score any points, and that was the only points they scored in the whole game. And as far as the Eagles go, they won that game good, and Barkley played great. But the offensive line wasn't good there either, and they got sacked around, and they were missing a key offensive lineman and played a little musical chairs. So offensive lineman injuries are big. If you're out there and you need a tip on betting, try to follow that stuff. It's hard to do if you're not understanding what's going on. Or, sometimes you could just look at sack numbers and think the offensive line played bad. Sometimes that's not the case. I mean, sometimes the quarterback's running back there and he ain't got 15 seconds. They can't block for him that long. So you have to be able to know what's going on in the games. But this isn't that factor. These guys on the Giants offensive line, they're just running through the Atlanta offensive line. They were just running through. They could not block them in any way, shape, or form. And that's not too good. So, see what else we have here. Oh, okay. The last thing is, we'll finish with these nuggets for this video. There are dead teams right now. We're only halfway through, and there's some teams that are going to maybe make a little run here in the second half after a bad start. But the Giants ain't one of them. And having a quarterback controversy now is not good. This team's in a disarray all over the field. They have one good player, young player in Neighbors, the wide receiver. They have 3 good players on defense, but that's not going to help them. It's a bad situation. Carolina, dead. Don't want to look at them. Don't want to bet them. You want to look to bet against all these teams. New England, the defense that came in that was supposed to be so good, they couldn't cover the kids in the neighborhood. Right now, the Las Vegas Raiders, they're going to start trading off pieces. You want to look to bet against them. This is a team that's really, really bad. And the fact is that the head coach is a moron. He doesn't know what he's doing. I think they're trying. I don't know what the hell's going on. I've never seen somebody kick field goals like he does in the final minutes when you're down 8 points. You still need a touchdown. You're at the 10-yard line. You just have to go for it. Teams are going for it on fourth down at the 4 early in games, and this guy's kicking a field goal. It's just mind-boggling, and he's lost the locker room. You don't want to bet them. And then after watching tonight's game with Tampa Bay, I said I was a Mayfield fan, and if you look at his stats, he put up some good numbers, but he made a couple bad plays tonight. They lose their 2 wide receivers, Evans and Godwin. It's over. Stick a fork in them, they're dead. I mean, you're not coming back from that. I mean, it's just hard to believe unless somehow Evans' hamstring, he can come back and play. But hamstrings are a bad injury. These are teams you can't bet on. And you know what? We can add in the Jets. Look, at some point, they're a joke. They're just not that good. I think that we keep forced to watch them on national TV. They're just not that good. You got to be really wary. It's not coming anytime soon. Adams they could add Jerry Rice and Dan Marino and all kinds of ex-pro players and their prime. This team just, nothing's working. New coach came in now 0-2. Who's to blame now? It's a bad situation, so you got to be careful. But I'm going to try to do a lot more videos this week as I watch tape. I'll try to do nugget tapes where I'll just call them tape nuggets, and that's what this was, and try to help you out so that you can understand what really went on in these games from more than just looking at the stats. So hopefully that helps you a little bit. You've been listening to Gary Greene and Gary Wins, and have a great new week, guys and gals.